So you might have seen this clip from Sky News in which Dawn Butler, who is a Labour politician, and Simon Clarke, who is a Tory politician, have a discussion about trans women. Because, this is what the British media is now. It is just room after room, day after day of discussion talking about trans people with no trans people there. Like a room full of cis people. So here we have these two and the host of the show, whatever. And lots of people have been sharing this because Simon Clarke here is a fucking idiot. His reaction to what happens is just so revealing of the whole anti-trans movement, of the gender critical mindset of this right-wing man who has absolutely no idea what he's talking about, but just hears the word trans and is disgusted. Such a fucking idiot and such a good example of this type of ridiculous clown of a man. But Dawn Butler here is arguing to some extent in favour of trans people's rights. She is part of the Labour Party, or the party in power at the moment, and they are actually probably overall, as a party with Keir Starmer in charge, worse for LGBT rights than the previous Conservative government. But Dawn Butler herself seems to be, a good person and generally pro-LGBT. But Dawn Butler has been a politician for 10 years. And that's about how long the turf wars have been going on. And what she says here is just dismal. The worst, it's just the worst, most infuriating conversation you've ever heard between two idiot cis people who clearly have neither of them have ever talked to a trans person, have put in absolutely no effort to learn about this topic at all. It is just, terrible. This guy gets 0 stars because he's a fucking idiot. Dawn tried, but she gets I tried my best sticker. 1 star out of 10 for the effort put in here. It's just really bad. Anyway, let's watch the clip. I'm going to have to pause it. I'm not going to be able to let this play the whole way through without pausing it because it is just so infuriating. It makes me want to scream. But yeah, right. Let's see how far we can get through this clip without me screaming.
If trans men then have to use women's toilets, that's going to make women less safe, because how are you going to stop a normal man going into a woman's toilet?
Okay, so first point, she's saying if we force people to use the toilets of their birth sex, then trans men will presumably either have to or be allowed to in some form use the women's toilets. As we covered last week, and as I have a video coming out soon on this channel, the argument doesn't actually hold up because the gender criticals have also banned trans men from men's spaces and women's spaces, and they ban trans women from women's spaces and men's spaces. They don't care. They just want to segregate us from society. But did you catch it? Let's go back a little bit.
Going to stop a normal man going in.
A normal man. It's just so infuriating. There is a word for men who aren't trans, or people, or women, or just anyone. And that's cis. And it's not a new word. It's not a word that we invented this year. It's not the language of social justice changes every 5 minutes. This word is coming up 80 years old in this context. And the actual word is 2,400 years old because it's a Latin word. But also now you're saying that trans people aren't normal, and this is the kind of thing I would totally I've heard people say this at the pub. When I first came out, maybe even some of my friends said something like this. Totally excusable from someone who, maybe you're watching this video and you're like, oh, I don't know what's wrong with this. I support trans people, but I'm new to this. I'm not coming for you. You're here to learn, and that's amazing. The reason why I wouldn't say normal as the opposite of trans is because a lot of people who aren't trans, cis people, aren't normal in any sense. Graham Linehan is not a normal person, and a lot of trans people are normal. I mean, maybe you don't think I'm normal because I like thrash metal and Pokemon cards or whatever, but a lot of trans people are normal in whatever. There's no, we can have this big argument about whether normal is a good word for society or not because it's creating people as outcasts or something. But in any reasonable description of anything, there's no way you could construct a definition of normal that it just means the same thing as not trans. It completely ridiculous. Terrible usage here. And if she doesn't want to say the word cis because she's bought into all this bullshit fear-mongering about using the words that trans people use, she could even say non-trans. That would also do. But anyway, sorry, I've cut in way too early. Let's keep going. It gets a lot worse.
How are you going to stop a normal man, going into a woman's toilets and saying, I'm a trans man? And so I think we have to look at that's
confused.
Why?
Because the point is that we're saying that people who are biologically men shouldn't be using women's toilets. That's the point of this ruling, among other things.
But a trans man is biologically a woman.
So frustrating. Like, this guy obviously has no fucking idea what a trans man is. He's never even thought about it. In his stupid little pea brain, he's never thought, well, if a trans woman is someone who used to be a boy and is now a woman, do they go the other way? Are there people who are born girls and are now men? Like, he hasn't stopped to think about that for 1 second. He's arrogant enough to come on TV to talk about where trans people should be able to, like, exist in society, but he hasn't bothered reading the notes from the Conservative Party, like, propaganda brochure or whatever that they hand out to politicians. He's not even read the Sex Matters, like, hateful bullshit thing they hand to all politicians. He has put no effort into this at all. He's not thought about it for 1 second. And then Dawn Butler has the chance. Wow, this would be such a good dunk. This fucking idiot is saying that, like, trans people have to use the facilities of their birth sex. And this is your opportunity. You actually have a guy who's never encountered the concept of trans men before. And you can be like, well, where are they supposed to go? And then he'll be like, crashed computer, which is what he does. Sorry, I'm spoiling it. But then she has to come out with trans men. And then she's like, he doesn't know what I'm saying. I mean women who are pretending to be men. Like, just come on. Like, put some effort in. Just talk to a trans person. Read something. They're not biologically women because they medically, in a lot of cases, most cases, medically transition and change their biology. And they're not biologically the same as either of the two women in this situation. Biological woman is an attempt to, it's a slur for trans men, and it's an attempt to obfuscate and hide the reality of what is going on, which is why this guy is so confused, which is a man who could easily look just like him, who used to be a girl at one point, who is now being told that they have to use the women's spaces. It's just so infuriating that she just put no effort into understanding. Like, it's not even that she said normal, which is frustrating. It's rude. It's offensive. It's dumb, but it's not like terrible. When I saw that and she said normal, like, kind of under her breath, I cringed. I was like, okay, that was dumb. Maybe she just slipped up and forgot the word. Pretty bad. But when you're starting to say slurs for trans people in their defense, what are you doing? Like, have you seriously not even talked to anyone involved in this at all to understand what we're talking about? Like, one of the core propaganda arguments from the anti-trans side is saying this: trans women are biologically men, which is scientifically, factually false. So why are you just repeating it? Like, why are you're just taking the core anti-trans argument and saying, yeah, I agree with that, but I don't think it's very nice, but it causes some complications, which it does and it isn't. But it's just so garbage. Anyway, let's keep going.
Biologically a woman.
Someone who's transitioned from being a woman to a man is...
The host is way better. She's put some effort in. Like, that's just so easy. It's just so easy to say that.
And so they would then have to use women's toilets.
I think this.
what the fuck is wrong with him? Like, look how long he's just like zoning out for. His brain, look at, there's nothing going on behind those eyes at all. He just completely zones out and is just like sitting there in
And so
silence.
they would then have to use women's toilets.
Okay, where are we now? 39. 54. Takes 15 seconds. It's just like... It's just like news to him that trans men are a thing. He didn't even have, like, there are gender critical responses to this. There's like some very dumb, low level gender critical apologetics. The classic one is be like, he could just say, well, they're biologically female, and so I believe that women should be able to make their own spaces and make their own associations, or like just some kind of dismissive science denial rubbish. That's the baseline gender critical apologetic. The next level up, which is like the Mayor Forstater one, is to be like, well, the trans men who have transitioned are scary for cis women, and they should be banned from the men's toilets too, and the women's toilets too. Which is actually her position. It's actually the position of the Equality and Human Rights Commission and J.K. Rowling and that. He didn't know that one. He hadn't even thought of that one. Like, the arrogance you have to go on to talk about people's human rights and to not have even heard of over half of the people that you're talking about. Just incredible. Like, I am most frustrated at this dickhead Simon Clarke, because it's just crazy that there are people who exist like that, who want to take away rights from groups of people they don't even know exist. Like how arrogant you have to be. But also, I'm so frustrated at Dawn Butler's like rubbish performance there. Like, absolutely terrible. Really is like 1 star out of 10 on how well she did there. Like, D-, failed the exam. It's not just that I'm not. It's not just that I'm offended. It is offensive when they say something like, "Oh no, I meant a normal woman." Like, that is offensive. But who cares about offensive? Transphobes are offensive to us. Orders of magnitudes worse than that every single second of every single day. You just cannot exist as a trans person if offense is something that like damages your well-being. It will destroy you, because offense isn't even something I consider. It is offensive, but that's just, who cares? It's like factually wrong when she says normal, because it's just completely nonsense description. But when she comes out with this biological woman thing to try and explain what a trans man is, it's just feeding the anti-trans position. Like, she's just completely undermining the argument that she's trying to have. Because like it's like this classic, oh, but sex and gender are different argument. Like, yeah, sex and gender are different. But if you paid any attention, you would see that the transphobes are saying, I don't care about gender, I only care about sex, and sex cannot change. And then what's your response to that? Well, if you're like Dawn Butler and you've paid absolutely no attention in 10 years, then you'll just be like, well. Or you could be like, well, actually, sex does change, but also, like, what chromosome someone has doesn't actually affect who finds them attractive, what medicine they need, or what discrimination they face, which is exactly why we shouldn't be segregating people in terms of medicine, sexuality, or prejudice based around their birth sex or one particular sex characteristic that they may or may not have that you can't even see. It's just such a easy position for her to have. Like, it's not complicated to realize that denying science and claiming that transition doesn't do anything and that people should, she is arguing that trans people should have rights regardless of their biology, but to also just accept the transphobic framing is just so counterproductive and scientifically wrong. So rubbish. Terrible clip. Made me want to scream the whole way through. The best person in the whole thing was the host, who maybe she said some other stuff that's terrible, maybe she's amazing, I have absolutely no idea, but in this one clip she said one thing, and it was to correct Dawn Butler absolutely fucking up the description of a trans man. She said someone who's transitioned from a woman to a man. That's not always true. A lot of trans men were never women because they transitioned before they were 18, or whatever the definition of the woman is in whichever country they live in. Because it is a social description and not a medical description when you become an adult. Anyway, that's a good enough description for most people in the audience. But yeah, terrible. I also saw a bunch of like left-wing people sharing this clip, like, Dawn Butler destroys Simon Clarke, stupid conservative, doesn't know what's going on. And like, no, this clip should be captured. I don't know what I'm going to title the video, but it'd be something like, 2 fucking idiots have a conversation about trans people. Like, so bad. I feel like Dawn Butler should issue an apology for this. It's so rubbish. And like, maybe she's watching this clip, and in which case, Dawn, I'm sure you're a very nice person, and I do appreciate that you were trying to stand up for trans people's rights in some capacity, but I am frustrated as to why you don't seem to have talked to a single trans person in the last 10 years. I just don't understand why that's the case, considering as we are like in the top 3 culture war issues.